When you're bike packing, you're gonna need to find somewhere to sleep.
And whilst it does take a bit more effort, nothing beats sleeping out under the stars.
No, it really doesn't. So in this video, we're gonna help you choose a tent or a shelter, no matter your budget or your experience.
Starting off with your most basic setup. So this is a bivvy bag. It's essentially a waterproof bag. You create a cocoon around yourself. You can put your sleeping bag and your sleeping mat inside. That's fully waterproof. It protects you from the elements. And there are some big advantages to these. So the main one being is they are so basic and they're really cheap. So you can pick up a good one for about 50 quid and they're so easy to pitch in the sense that you don't actually need to pitch it. You just take it out of this bag, put it on the floor, that's that. When you're finished, you pack it all up again, put it in your packs. There are some downsides to a bivvy bag, which I should let you know about. So these are basic, which are great, but when it comes to basic, very basic. It is just a bag separating you from the elements. It can be quite hardcore at times when the weather does turn. And if you're not a fan of bugs or sleeping right next to them, that might be a bit off-putting. It doesn't actually bother me, because we are in the northern European wilderness, which doesn't have many bugs that can eat you, or snakes, or tarantulas, or scorpions. I've been in countries of those, and in one of these, and that is a bit of a different story. I know people watching around the world do have those sort of venomous insects. Don't throw them my way. But the other downside is they're quite hard to get into sometimes. So when you're all wrapped up and you really need to go to the toilet, it can be a bit tough to get in and out of when it's cold outside. Okay, the last downside is it's quite hard to regulate your temperature in these, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. So of course you have to totally wrap yourself up, so you can get a little bit too hot, you can get a bit of condensation build up inside, and also if you do get cold, you have to really huddle in and get yourself warm. But for me, what I find hard is getting myself cool. Like, I do tend to overheat when I'm camping, and I like to kind of spread myself out and get out of the bag, and then I fall asleep and I end up really cold. So that part of it takes a bit more getting used to than when you progress to a tent, which affords you a little bit more luxury, I think, in the temperature regulation department. But overall, the downsides, there are some major positives to experiencing a bivvy bag setup when you're camping, and the main one is that you are literally under the stars. It is absolutely beautiful. You can fall asleep looking up at the sky. You just really feel encompassed by nature itself. You're so immersed in the environment you've just ridden through and you've decided to spend the night in. It is an absolutely priceless experience, which I'd recommend to anyone. And there are some ways to overcome some of the downsides of a bivvy bag. The main one is getting a tarp. So this is kind of a sheet which you can erect via trees, or you can tie it to your bike, and this provides an additional kind of rainproof, windproof shelter above you, which affords you a little bit more luxury, so you can get out your bivvy bag more. You have some space to protect your gear, because that's another downside of a bivvy bag. You've got no space to put your shoes or any other gear when you're riding, and protect it from dew or rain during the night. You can also slightly upgrade your bivvy bag setup, so there's kind of some hoops on your head area, which will provide you just a bit more space. So if you do get cold and you totally kind of encompass yourself, it's not just pressed against your face, it's like a half tent sort of design, and that would have a bit of a mosquito sheet as well, so you can get the air in and breathe a bit more without all the bugs rushing in. But if you're considering trying camping, start with this, start with your bivvy bag. Even just for one night, it's absolutely fantastic, and you can't really go wrong. It is absolutely beautiful when you see those stars. Enjoy, everyone.
Now, if you're looking to upgrade from a bivvy bag, I'd highly suggest you go for a one-man tent like the one I've got behind me. Now, there are so many options out there, but there are a few things that I'd look out for when choosing the one for you. First off, looking for one that can be erected freestanding, so basically not being pegged out. It would just allow you a huge amount more options of where you can put your tent up. The other thing is making sure it packs down really small. Now, it sounds obvious, but a lot of people forget how big a tent can actually get. So finding one that can pack down as small as humanly possible will only make your life a lot easier and allow you to take more on your bike. The key is to look for some short poles. And actually I found that the other day. I got some longer poles and I struggled to fit them in my bag. So when you're finding that tent, look for a short pole and something that packs down really small. The other big benefit is you have your own little space. Come inside. Now, one of the biggest benefits, I think, is being able to have your own space that's contained. And what I mean by that is you're not going to get loads of bugs bug you, yeah, sorry for the pun, all night long. So you're basically in a mesh contained environment, and you can make it your own. You've got make it your little bedroom. The other big benefit is if you've got some kit, you can leave that in the porch, and if it rains or you get any bad weather conditions, it's going to protect you and your kit from those weather conditions too. But I've got to say, just looking up now, the amount of bugs that I've been able to keep away from is worth its weight in gold. One more thing to look out for is your hydrostatic head rating. That's the waterproof rating. Now, if you're camping in spring, autumn, a 3,000 millimeters is something to look out for, and that's a good base point. But if you're going somewhere a lot wetter, then I'd suggest looking at something a bit more, but you might be carrying a bit more extra weight though. Of course, there is a slight downside to a tent versus a bivvy, and one is that it is going to take a little bit more room in your bike packing bags, especially if you go lower on the spectrum on budget. But if you've got a budget of about £150, euros or dollars, then you could get something that weighs between 1 and 1.5 kilograms. That should be just fine.
Leading on from a one-man tent, if you are bike packing, you could consider upgrading to a two-man tent. Now, of course, these are bigger, they're bulkier, so they're going to take up more space in your packs, and they're going to weigh a bit more. But if you're riding with someone else, actually, once you do the maths, these can take up less space if you divide it between the two, because you can separate poles, the outer and the inner, and then divide that between yourselves amongst your bags. The main advantage for going for a two-man tent is the space. You get so much more of it. So if maybe you're going out on a slightly more chilled trip, or you're riding for a longer period and you do just want that space at camp to relax and sort your bits out in the tent, maybe you think the weather's going to be a bit more inclement and you're not sure what to expect, it is so valuable to have that extra space and to be able to shelter bits and just slightly larger porch space. And it will make your trip that bit more enjoyable. But as well, there's still plenty of space in here to share it with a good friend. I've done that in the past. I'm not sure they're a good friend anymore, but I'll leave that to your judgment. For any tent you're considering, I'd really recommend getting a footprint for the base. So this is basically a separate sheet of material which you then build your tent on. Provides an additional layer of waterproofing to the ground, and it also really helps to protect your tent on slightly rougher surfaces. It will prolong the life of your tent, because once this wears out you can easily replace it, whereas this is of course a much more expensive item to change up. If you are carrying a two-man tent, you're probably going to need to upgrade your bike packing setup slightly. I'd probably lean towards panniers if you're riding on your own, because these are quite bulky, as I said, and they're going to take up a lot more room. Panniers will afford that, as well as being allowing you to take all your extra stuff that you need on your bike. Another tip is, if you are struggling with the bulky nature of it, you can pitch these with just the inner or just the outer, depending on your situation. So that makes it a much smaller size to get on your bike. With just the outer, that's going to give you that waterproofing layer, but you haven't got that bug-proof protection. You're going to get a bit more condensation inside the tent too. If you're riding in somewhere really dry, you can get away with just the inner. It's going to protect from those bugs, but of course, if it does then rain, you're going to get a little bit wet. So that is something to bear in mind, and know that you can have that flexibility with your tent setup.
And lastly, the trusty hammock. They've been around for a long time, and there's good reason for that, because there are a number of different benefits. One of the main benefits is you can get them really quite cheap. They keep you nice and comfy. You're off the ground, depending on the terrain. You might be trying to pitch or sleep in a rocky area or really boggy area too, and this will just elevate you off the ground, so you're away from the bugs and all the creep crawlies along the ground. The only downside is that if you're in a sparse area, think the Gobi Desert, you're going to struggle to find two trees. But I'm lucky, I found two trees in the middle of nowhere. And I'll just show you one of the main big points, so that you can get in it And you could also have a fly net over the top. So if you are worried about mosquitoes, or if you're in Scotland, the midges, then you can get away from them that way. And that's really
No,
good.
that wasn't part of the deal. That wasn't part of the deal.
Huh?
You can't get in it. I'm just being a pretendary.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that is the big downside. I actually couldn't find a tree, but luckily Conor stepped in to help me. Just stay there for a bit. I just need to go and make some porridge.
I wanted some porridge too. Come with you. There you go. I hope this has provided you with some useful information when you're selecting a tent or shelter. And I really would say just get out there and give it a go.
Yeah, 100%. Wherever you are, just book a trip just to get out into the wilderness, and trust me, you will not regret it.
Yeah, but let us know in the comment section down below how you like to camp out, what you've considered in the past, what you think works best for you, and where you are in the world. We always love to hear from you, and get the debate going.
And don't forget, hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the wilderness next time.